All right, we got a few more folks with us now. Reg noticed the number. As I predicted, 19 registered, 12 would show up. 60, for your information, about 60% of the people who register for a meeting or a webinar actually show up. That's the average that I've experienced over.
It's about the same vaccination rate we've got in Alberta.
I don't think there's a connection between the two, Reg, but nice try.
Oh.
Okay, I won't delay your afternoon or lunchtime any longer than we have to. Thank you for participating. We will do this as a video so that you can send it off to your friends and colleagues afterwards to catch up. And I'm going to do a quick run through PowerPoint. We'll go through the website to show you all the new nooks and crannies and point out a few things that you should pay attention to. And by all means, if at any time you have a question, just either raise your hand in the participants box or just cut in on me on the microphone and we'll handle it. We're a small and familiar crowd. And so that's not a problem. So I'm going to share my screen for a few minutes. You can shut your mics if they're open because there's background noise. Everybody can see the PowerPoint. Good. All right. Can you shut your mic, Reg?
Okay.
Just so there's no background noise or whoever. Okay, so the new and improved all-around awards program. Because you're registered, you probably read the article in the newsletter. It's the first time we've done a substantial revision to the awards program since somewhere around the early 1990s when Peter Hardnell did it. I forget the exact year. We've tinkered with it, of course, as we've gone along, as the digital era unfolded the work that we do. But this is the first major upgrade in quite a number of years, and I'd like to thank Trevor Back, Tracy Feist, Myrna Starkleader, Ali, and Noma, who are the secretariat for all the work they've done over the last pretty much year, pandemic interrupted, to get this done. So just a quick refresher. This is what it used to look like. Even last year we did a test run on the award of the year concept, photo of the year, and it was well received, at least by the photography people. But generally we've had a division, as you see there, since the beginning, with the electronic media, news release, general periodical, and then through the features and columns, and of course the monthly, weekly, daily division, which used to be the stalwarts of the publishing industry. And of course, one of the motivations for changing is that with daily publishing on the web, frequency is much less of a concern or a criteria than it used to be. So this lays out the structure of the awards as we'll see them coming up this year. Some of them, of course, have remained pretty much the same, but what we've done is group them. I'm going to go through the details in a minute. But essentially, we've got communications, if you will, at the top. We did a little fudging around the edges to squeeze everything in, but generally fits together. The only one that was not really an outlier, but by itself, was, of course, the columns and the editorials, which is now called opinion writing. But then the rest all neatly fit into the feature reporting and the photography groups. And then we added on the of the year categories, and I'll explain all that. And in addition, to give a bit more pizzazz, a bit more highlight focus to the excellence story of the year, new writer of the year, and writer of the year, to great applause and trumpets blaring at the awards banquet, which we hope will be in the end of September in Windsor, Ontario. So what are the four main areas of change that we came up with? One is, as I mentioned, the removal of the frequency of publications, because even though publications are still printing and do it on a publication basis, a lot more is going digital and is on websites, and stories are going up on a regular basis. So people were having difficulty fitting their work into a category. We've grouped them together with the additional of the year for each to award excellence at another level, and added on the 3 of the year awards, the new writer, and story of the year. And of course, when we did all that, we had to redistribute the prize money. And it's pretty much the same amount going out, but in different amounts. So when we went into frequency, electronic communications is the same as before because there wasn't really a frequency to it. Communications was changed from the news release and the general periodical because they are less the traditional forms of news releases and annual reports and those kinds of things are much more different now. So we generally said, well, let's take communications in general and look at them in terms of the length. And it's an arbitrary division for sure, but it gives more flexibility as to what people can submit. And so if they've got an announcement that's not a news release, or they've got some other kind of communication that they put out, it will more easily fit into either one or of those categories, depending on the length. The features, which are always and traditionally have been the most popular in the submission categories, the technical one stays the same, but the general feature one is now divided into current affairs and people. So give it a little bit more focus, because what was happening is the feature category was becoming a bit of a dumping ground, in that people who had a good article, but they didn't know where to put it, so they put it in feature. So this, I think, will sharpen that up a little bit. Reporting is the main change in terms of frequency, because that was daily, weekly, monthly, and it is now just reporting. So whether you write for the Western Producer in the weekly edition, or whether you write for Country Guide and it's a report as defined, and you'll see on the website, it'll be divided now into technical, current affairs, and business and economics. So that, again, it gives it more focus, it gives more flexibility, and maybe it's something that you had published in several publications, and so it allows you to put that in without being restricted. And then the photos, which last year we lined up with the IFAJ categories, people, production, and landscapes, so that you can not only submit the photos to the CFWF contest, you can also then do that IFAJ and try and get something a little bit extra. The second one is groupings. We grouped the 14 categories into groups, with the exception of opinion writing, as I previously mentioned. So we have communicator of the year, feature of the year, reporting of the year, and photo of the year. And so those will be drawn from the winning entries in that group. And so just to give a little bit of extra recognition to some quality work that comes out, and a bit more pizzazz in the awards process. We've added on some more excellence. So we'll go through these a little bit more, but Farm Writer of the Year, this will allow you to submit a body of your work. So not just an article. You can submit a variety of different pieces, and we use the term farm writer to include all communications. I know it's a bit of an oddity, but I do remember quite well the last time I proposed changing the name of the Canadian farm writers to the Canadian Ag Communicators, and it sunk like a lead balloon in a lake with a brick attached. So we're not going back there again. We are farm writers, but it will include those other aspects of communication, video, broadcasting, web, and so on and so forth. New writer is to recognize somebody that's new to the industry and not necessarily young. You could apply to, Reg, if you wanted to, if you've been only writing for a couple of years, because there are people who come into the industry from other sectors. And then story of the year, so that we can sort of have again, another level of excellence that gets recognized, and a bit more pizzazz for the awards. And then finally, because we rejigged all of that, and there are in fact more prizes to go around, the amounts will be adjusted to in the categories 75, 100, and 125. 250 on top of that goes to the winner of each group. And then, of course, the story of the year, new writer of the year, and farm writer of the year, a little bit more gloss on there, an incentive to put your work in, a nice, handsome check, good-looking check at the end of that exercise, if you go to the effort to bundle up your production for the year and send it in for evaluation. And what we'll do for the regular categories is we recruit judges, of course, but what we're going to do for the 3 story of the year, new writer of the year, and farm writer of the year, is we're going to tap into the senators who are former presidents of the association and get a little committee of 3 together to ponder over that pile that will come in and come up with a recommendation. So just before I forget, don't forget CFWF annual general meeting. I'll put that into the into the chat box in a minute, but the annual meeting's on June the 2nd, where we'll have an exciting time reviewing the minutes and agenda and all those other documents that you have to look at a general meeting. And we're going to try a little experiment at the end with the breakout rooms, a little bit of socialization. And so we'll set up a breakout room for each province, or each region rather, and you can skip between one room and the other and chat with people you haven't seen for a while, and set up your connections for when you get to Windsor in September. So that was pretty much a flash through. We'll send out a copy of this afterwards for your reference, and there will be the video. Any questions before we go to the website? In the chat box. So are we concerned that every writer will enter writer of the year and you'll have a flood of entries with multiple pieces for each writer, and that would be a lot for the judges? The half of me says, yes, I hope so. Half of me says, no, I hope not. It's a good question, Glenn. We don't really know. It seems, when you're sitting in committee, it seems like this is a good thing to do. And people will probably be moderate in thinking that, okay, I've got the best 5 stories or 5 communication pieces for the year. So it's going to take some effort to put that in. So like submissions for, let's say, the IFAJ Bayer Bursary to, the Congress, people have to write something up and think about it and organize themselves. It's not just send something in that you had written before. So my guess is that I'd be happy to deal with that problem, that if we're flooded, it would be a good sign that people will think this is a good thing to do. On the other hand, I think somewhere we'll land in between, and hopefully we won't wear down any senators so that they'll never come back again. But it's a valid question, and we'll see how the landscape comes out on the other end.
Just a question, are you using the new categories of these of the year categories as a potential sponsorship, expanding the financial support with the industry?
No, the amount of money in total will be approximately the same as we gave out before. It's just redistributed amongst different amounts and different categories.
It does provide an opportunity for the CFWF to raise their profile by having industry support on a 3 or 5 year window of support.
What we're hoping for is that the consolidation into the groupings will allow, we won't have to approach as many sponsors. And of course, we're always cautious about the awards because we don't want to poach into the conference, right, which is put on by the regional outfit. So it's always a bit of a balance. And so again, that will also be, we're heading into uncharted waters here that, we'll have to approach the previous sponsors and see just how they respond to the new categories. I think it'll be positive. Yeah, again, it's a good question, and ask me again in September in Windsor.
Yeah. Well, it's an opportunity we shouldn't overlook, and I think it's a strong repurposing, and I think it's got potential to raise the profile of the association as well.
Right. And also, it's one of the things that I find interesting is that we've been able to raise the level of excellence or recognition of excellence, but we've also been able to broaden the number of people who will receive a prize. So even if it's a bronze prize in the category, so we seem to have been able to do both things. But we'll see by the end of the year whether we can pull all that off and see what the responses. So far, the response to those who've seen the awards and had a chat about them has been positive. And Glenn is asking if we could write up a few sentences on that. I would share it with my reporters to give some guidance. Okay, well, we're going to move over to the website and take a look at some of those descriptions, and you can tell me whether they're adequate or not for informing you of what needs to be done. And so, where is it? Right, so if you go to the website, are you seeing my screen still? You never know when it's up there or not. So if you go to the CFWF website, cfwf.ca, and you go to my CFWF, and you go to awards, and to awards, you will get all the information that you need. There is a PDF download so that if you want to take it offline and go browse on all the details, those things are all there. And the information in large part is very similar to past years. So there's the dates, June 11th, don't forget that. As the deadline, the contact information, by all means, if you have questions, please get hold of Ali. She'd be happy to try and answer them. We have the rules and the guidelines. They are pretty much the same. The definition of agriculture, how to submit entries. I'm not going to go through all the gory details online. You can open it on your screen. And certainly if you do have any questions, I encourage you to ask. We go through the different categories and the definitions. So this is the writer of the year. So in response to your question, Glenn, it gives you a description awarded based on 12 months of published material, tells you what you need to demonstrate when you make the submission. You need to put in 5 entries and supported by a letter. Why do you think you are going to be the writer of the year? And it can include any form of communication, print, magazine, blogs, broadcast, radio, etc. As I explained, farm writers means everybody, but photos will not be part of the judging for this particular entry. And it's $50. So you've got some skin in the game, and think that you've had an exceptional year. You've got 5 things that should go in. So maybe I could ask Glenn, does that suffice in terms of a description that you can give to your reporters, the people that you work with? And in the chat box, there is, that looks good. All right. So the new writer is the same thing, except the only difference is it's somebody who has been a member for less than 2 years or less. So again, they probably would be mostly younger people, but there are people who come in later in their career, and so they're eligible. So people who are new to CFWF. And story of the year. The story of the year, you're going to have to submit. It's going to be selected from all the others. But again, to give a bit of prominence to excellence as it exists. So those are the three new ones that we've added on, and the descriptions. And so the same works the same for all the others. You just click on the plus sign and you get the description of the electronic media and what you need to submit. And I'll come back to it later, but of course at the bottom is all the gory details, right, that you need to know about blind judging and all that kind of stuff. And we'll just go to the entry form. And the key thing here is to remember that each entry form is separate. So we just couldn't configure it without making a massive web-coded web page using Wufoo forms. So it needs a little bit of work on your part, but the form will remember your name. So once you've entered it once, it'll just be the details about the submission. So Ali, did you want to go through this as the expert in Wufoo forms?
It's pretty simple. If you just if everyone follows, answer each question as you go through, it's pretty straightforward. Just follow as it goes, and there shouldn't be any issues filling out the form. There's nothing too special about it. So
can I go to the next page on this?
It just has required forms. So you might have to just put a bunch of random information to skip to the next page.
So you want to answer the questions, you want to put your name in. Do I have to answer all those lines?
I think so, yeah.
You can tell I fill these forms out all the time, right? So then it comes up and it allows you to choose which category you're going into.
And you can select more than one too.
You can do two.
Yeah.
So you could enter something in that group. You could do all four, but you then have to do a separate form if you're going to do reporting. And then, of course, you put the details of the entry. What have we got? We can link something here. Put the CFWF logo. If you're uploading a big video, don't click, don't refresh. So then you get all the information and you go to the payment form. Et voila. I'm not going to submit it and do all that stuff, but it's very similar to the past years, but that if you want to put something in communications or you want to put something in reporting, you'll have to do it twice. But once you've done it the first time, the form will remember that you filled it out and, the autofill stuff. So, any questions? So then there's the how to enter the blackout. All that stuff is the same. The entry fees. There's useful links on how to compress PDFs and so on and so forth. And again, if you've got questions, please contact Ali. There we go.